Welcome, friends, to this evening session. Very lovely to be able to offer some meditation, guided meditation, and followed by a Dharma talk. And I hope to make some space at the end for questions and answers. So let's begin with a meditation practice. And we can sit together for about 30 minutes, half an hour. And so please make yourselves comfortable. And closing the eyes, bringing the vision, the awareness, the mindfulness to bear on this body sitting. And see what you notice, what's obvious in terms of feeling in the body. How do you know that you're here? How do we know we have a body? We can see what presents itself. And it's so helpful to sit upright, to have an upright posture, so we can notice the posture and make little adjustments if necessary to bring the frame, the skeleton, the hard parts of the body, within the body, into alignment. So there's an uprightness, so that the head is sitting squarely on the shoulders, and the spine is squarely, all squared up with the pelvis, the sitting bones. We can feel it. We can feel a sense of relaxation when we're not leaning off to one side or another, or slouching, or too tense, too rigid, too upright. So it's worth feeling this aspect of the body, how we're sitting, how we're positioning the body. And then breathe deep and notice the breath. Where we feel the breath, natural breath. How we perceive the quality of the breath, whether it's short or long, whether it's labored or easeful, and where we feel the breath, how it is. And so the attention is becoming more focused on certain aspects of the body and this rhythm of the breath. And it's so very helpful to just attend to the body in this way. Very simple, very uncomplicated, very straightforward practice. Just to be here, just to sit, and to be aware of the physical reality of embodiment. This body as our temple, this body as our place of practice. And we can observe the body any way we wish, in terms of the elements, earth, water, fire, and air, the weight, the substance, the movement, the temperature, the fluidity. We can observe certain parts of the body, or we can move the attention around the body in different ways, or simply observe the breath. But let the attention be here. Let this be the focus of attention for this session. Allowing the mind to come to stillness, peacefulness, focus. Paying attention to the body breathing, body relaxing. Notice how any tension is naturally able to release as we pay attention. Kind of soothing quality, easing quality for the body. And if there is areas, experiences of restlessness, discomfort, pain even, then we can gently attend to that. With a kind, welcoming quality to our attention, opening to whatever discomfort may be present, and breathing into it, breathing around it, letting it be, witnessing. And so we can ease into this practice, deepening our focus, our quality of attention, resting in this body, in this breath. And if it's difficult, if there's a struggle to stay here, to be here, to rest here, then keep it simple. Just focus on one aspect of feeling in the body, where the feeling's kind of neutral, not pleasant hands, or the feet, perhaps, or the weight of the body sitting. Just that much. Wonderful object of meditation. And rest, and apply attention gently, kindly. And so we can sit together for another little while. And just for the last moments of our meditation, we can bring in thought of kindness, loving kindness, and wish ourselves well. Wish this experience well. Just allow any sense of warmth and kindness that we can relate to come in and bring this quality, kind of surround the heart-mind with this quality of well-wishing. May I be well. May I be peaceful. May I be at ease. And just breathing deeply into this sense of well-wishing, kindness. And let it extend with the out-breath to all around, in every direction, above and below. Let this feeling of kindness, of well-wishing, radiate forth. And so, a big welcome again to all venerables, all dear friends. And I'd like to take the opportunity now to speak on Dharma. And to begin with, I'd like to pay homage to the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang namang sanghang namasami. So I'd like to speak today, I think, on the topic of wise attention, what we pay attention to. So like in the meditation that we've just done, and in meditation generally, there's an encouragement to pay attention to the body, pay attention to the breath, pay attention to the way it is. We can notice when we meditate, can't we? What is the state of mind? Is there anything that's obsessing the mind? Anything that's playing on the mind? Is there any worries or concerns? Is there any emotional affect right now? Is there a sense of well-being, or is there a sense of difficulty, anxiety, despair? We can notice all of these things, and we're paying attention in such a helpful way. When we meditate, we're simply attending to what is, what's present for this mind and body. And this is surely a very skillful way to direct our attention. And in everyday life, we can be guided as to how we pay attention and what we pay attention to by the teachings of the Buddha. And in many suttas, the Buddha encouraged us to direct our attention towards that which enables, encourages good qualities to arise, skillful qualities, skillful mind states, skillful behaviors, skillful speech. Paying attention to that which develops the skillful. Paying attention to bringing in skillful qualities where we can. And equally, to the encouragement from the Buddha is to kind of redirect our attention, move away from attending to certain things, to not give attention to that which is unskillful, that which is unwholesome, and to avoid bringing in any unwholesome qualities through attending to them, any unwholesome qualities that are kind of lurking in the background, trying to get a look in. We need to be very sharp to have this kind of ability to direct our attention skillfully. And it's difficult sometimes, isn't it? I mean, for sure. Sometimes we can be caught up in ways of thinking, behaviors, activities, ways of speaking that are, we kind of know that this isn't going in a good direction. This is suffering. I'm suffering already. And if I continue in this way, in this vein, in this behavior, I'm going to suffer more. And sometimes we know that, like with an addiction to certain things. We know that if we take more food, or we drink that drink, or we keep watching those movies, we direct our attention in these ways that lead to, not very pleasant states of mind, not very easeful states of mind. But we can find it very difficult, can't we, to actually let go of these activities, these behaviors. But this teaching is very helpful because we know at least that it's probably good to try and move away from unskillful behaviors. And when we start to recognize this, we keep the precepts, we maybe sometimes aim to take up some renunciant precepts, move away from entertainment, move away from trivial pursuits, and allow ourselves to focus on more wholesome ways of being, do more meditation, or read some suttas, or listen to a Dharma talk. Even as we start to recognize the value, the benefit of letting go of kind of frivolous or kind of time-wasting or even intoxicating, unhealthy behaviors, habits, we can have a struggle. We can find it challenging to actually do what we know we want to do, what we know we maybe should do, what would be good to do. But we can still have very strong inclinations to pursue the kind of comfortable, kind of known, habitual ways of being. And then we get the chance to really work with the mind and to experience the challenges and also the benefits of renunciation. So that sense of, okay, I really want to direct my attention in a good and wholesome way. I want to give up this habit. And there can be a kind of, like 80% of me wants to do the right thing, do what feels good, do what feels wholesome, follow the teachings of the Buddha, and 20% can really put up serious resistance to this change, this stepping out of unfortunate habits. And we get to really work with this 20% of serious resistance. And this is a very wonderful way of practice when we actually come to the point where we're working with our attention, how we pay attention, and the willing to make changes to actually transform our ways of being, our ways of behaving, the ways we spend our time. And what I've noticed myself is that we can't just give things up just because we know it's a good idea to stop doing X, Y, or Z, smoking, drinking, movies, whatever it may be. It's really hard if we have a habit over many weeks, months, years of certain ways of behaving. It's really hard just to stop because it's attractive for us to continue in the same way. There's a great attraction within us for that which is habitual. It's like our comfort zone, isn't it? And it feels good, even when it's not. We know it's not great for us, but it feels good on some level because it's the known, it's the comfortable. And so working with resistance and redirecting the attention is a really powerful and wholesome and very fruitful practice, and requires great patience, great kindness, and forgiveness, because we're liable to kind of take, 3 steps forward and 2 steps back, and maybe 2.5 steps back. But there can be a movement in the right direction, and that's good enough. Let that be good enough, And focusing the attention. In this regard, we can focus our attention on the wholesome. We can focus on moving our attention away from the unwholesome. And we can also pay attention to what is progress and not pay attention to blaming, judging, criticizing ourselves for not immediately freeing up from our bad habits, our unfortunate habits. And the Buddha gave, a number of strategies for working with, we could say, defilements, working with unfortunate habits, ways in which we can help ourselves to move through this difficult area of changing, letting go of the unwholesome and developing the wholesome. Like I said, it's what we want to do. We feel we know how to practice and what's good to do, what's good to let go of, but to actually be able to do so is a process, and it takes great courage and great perseverance. And so we can consider, the Buddha advised, to really consider the unwholesome qualities that we may find are still bubbling away inside for us. For instance, anger. If I get angry, often I can feel perfectly justified. I'm angry because something's happened that's not okay. And my response is natural, and it has its place. And things need to be done. Things need to be said. Things need to be done to put the situation right. And anger can be very compelling, can't it, for us? Because when we're charged up with this very vital, very dynamic energy of anger or righteous indignation, we can feel very sure that something has to be done. And it's quite attractive. It's quite a, how to say, like we really want to pursue this stream of consciousness. We really want to make the important changes that need to be made. Yet, we can, consider the Buddha's teachings again and again on anger. He would say, this is to be let go of as quickly as possible, not to be given any attention, not to be nourished in any way at all. This is to be relinquished, put aside. How do we put aside this compelling energy of anger when it arises? And again, it's a process. It's not easy to just drop it. There's a whole sort of upsurge, like an upswelling, like a volcano erupting, or the lava kind of pouring out, and smoke, and tremendous energy in anger. And it's actually often simply not possible to put a lid on it. No, it will tend to then just erupt, perhaps even more strongly. We can't suppress it, in short. No, we have to know how to work with it, don't we? And how to direct our attention in a way that enables us to kind of just manage to avoid allowing anger to move into unskillful speech, unskillful action, and thoughts that we may have around the cause of our anger, the wrong things that are being done, the injustices that we're observing. These thoughts, again, if we pay attention to them, we're liable to get hotter and hotter, more and more riled up, more and more charged, and more likely to speak or act in a way that we probably would later regret when the heat has come down. So, taking great care when we're angry, when we're upset, when we have any negative emotions playing out, sort of washing through the system, firing us up. We want to be so careful about where we direct our attention. And so the Buddha gave various strategies for this. And in this example of anger, for instance, one thing we can do is very quickly bring to mind the danger of this state of mind. The Buddha said it's like a beautiful person, young person, who's freshly washed and they have clean, freshly laundered clothes on. Beautiful. And somebody drapes the carcass of a dead animal around that young person's neck. The response would be one of disgust, revulsion. Get this thing off me as quickly as possible. In the same way the Buddha said, when we experience anger, let's remember this quality is unwholesome through and through. Can we relate to it, in the same way as this beautiful, clean, freshly washed and dressed young person would regard a carcass around his or her neck? Can we regard anger as this repulsive, quite disgusting, abhorrent, despicable, unwanted state of mind. And this can really help, because the energy, the attention, then, rather than resting on the cause of the anger, the scenario, and all the things that we want to do in the future in order to give vent to this anger, instead of paying attention to that and thus, firing it up, instead we're directing our attention to the skillful and correct and wise attitude, which is abhorrence. No, I don't want this to take over. I don't want this anger to have any place here. I want to cast it aside, to let it go. This attitude, this wise attention, can really help us to not follow the course of anger, to not give any opportunity, for unwholesomeness to manifest around us, through us, when we're angry. We become very focused, we become very still, and we are really kind of allowing all our effort and energy to go into the letting go of anger. This is one way that we can deal with afflictive emotions, through paying wise attention. Another way the Buddha gave is to replace the anger with something different, something wholesome and positive. And this it may sound impossible, but as many of you will probably recognize, it's not actually impossible. It's quite interesting to notice that, and to appreciate that we can really quite radically change our world by noticing, paying attention to something other than the afflictive emotion. So somebody says something, I'm annoyed, I'm irritated. My inclination is just to say something back, to kind of lash out verbally, to give what I was given, tit for tat, how can they get away with that, and so forth. That may be the inclination, but if we're attending to the Buddha's teachings, if we have wise attention, we'll redirect to thoughts of kindness. Bring in a thought of well-wishing. It doesn't have to even relate to the situation. If that's a stretch, if this person isn't really somebody with whom I've had any positive interactions that I can bring up and remember and cherish and use in order to develop some kindness in this moment. If there isn't anything very positive there, okay, I'll just think of someone else. Think of someone that I love and care for and respect. Bring them in. Just bring them in to the situation. Allow the goodness that I feel, perceive in relation to this other person. Allow that to bless the situation right now. If one were a Christian, what immediately comes to my mind as a born Catholic is bring in the gods, bring in the angels, bring in the really impeccably wholesome and good and bright beings. We can do that. It's not like we're asking them to make everything okay. We still take responsibility for our karma, but we can bring in the wholesome, bring in the good. And just like taking a peg, the Buddha said, taking a round peg out of a hole and picking up a different peg, a different colored peg, and inserting that in its place. So we can literally take our attention away from the anger, the hatred, the negativity, and bring in the loving kindness, bring in compassion, bring in peace. It's wonderful to consider this as a practice, consider this possibility, because when we are able to experiment, to actually see the possibility of this kind of substitution of the wholesome for the unwholesome, then we can recognize that we have tremendous agency. We have tremendous ability in every moment through the ways in which we direct our attention to really transform, to really heal, to really avoid harm and suffering. We can do that. We can substitute loving kindness for anger, the wholesome qualities when unwholesome qualities are arising. How amazing. Another way that we can deal with afflictive emotions through right attention is, of course, to come back to the body, to meditate. As all of you, I'm sure, are very aware, we're not just meditating formally when we sit in a quiet place and have the wonderful opportunity to relax and to really recharge the batteries, to peacefully meditate. We're meditating all the time. Ideally, there's a continuity of practice. There's some degree of mindfulness of the body, of the breath. And so, in this way, as we're developing our mindfulness 24/7, except when we're in deep sleep, as we're developing mindfulness throughout our lives, we can start to notice how the mind and body are reacting to sense input, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and thinking throughout the day. Things are happening all the time, and there's all sorts of responses going on here within this body and mind. And we want to tune in as much as we can to what's happening here, because this is very valuable, both to enable us to pay wise attention and to behave and speak and be acting skillfully in a consistent manner. And also, we have the chance to learn then, don't we, from, all of our experience. Wisdom is able to arise through understanding, through seeing, through attending to what is. And so, another way of directing our attention skillfully so that the wholesome qualities grow and the unwholesome qualities decline is to pay attention to what's happening in the body. And when, say in the example of anger, when I get angry, somebody says or does something, boom, I really don't like this. I'm really cross about this. The heat is coming into the body. There may be some clenching in parts of the body, tension. There may be kind of shakiness. There may be fear. There may be a strong sense of wanting to do something, to move, to erupt. And we can observe all of this. We can observe the reactions in the body, whatever they are, however they manifest. And if we are in a situation where we're triggered, a negative, some kind of negative or some kind of reactive energy starts to arise, we can notice, can't we, when we're practicing mindfulness and developing mindfulness in our everyday lives, we can notice, there's something here that's not peaceful right now. What's going on? Feel that belly tightening. Feel the breath becoming more shallow. Feel the shoulders tensing up. Feel these responses. And when we're paying attention in this way, the anger doesn't have a chance to grow. It doesn't have a chance to sort of evolve into angry speech, angry actions. We're far too busy paying attention to what's going on. How fascinating, how extraordinary. We can really learn about the ways in which reactivity, emotions, difficult, painful mind states manifest in the body. And it's not comfortable. It's not comfortable to be with anger, but it's a lot safer to pay attention to what anger actually is for us than it is to react angrily, to act out of anger. We've lost the plot when we start to do that. We've missed an opportunity. The opportunity is a great opportunity for us. When we're triggered, when we have some outflow of the asava, the defilements, the deep-rooted greed, hatred, aversion, ignorance that we may still be carrying in the heart, in the mind, when we have a chance to observe these things kind of bubbling up from beneath the surface, manifesting, it's deeply uncomfortable often, but it's very, very wholesome and very beneficial and very actually kind of fascinating. And ultimately, when we start to really pay attention to the body in a consistent way, compelling to see what's changed and what's actually happening and how the energy is moving and how also our skillful and kind attention enables whatever afflictive emotions are kind of assailing us, it enables them to move through. It enables them to flow. It gives them a chance to really very fully manifest, kind of live their life and then pass away. And we can sit and watch the whole thing. And there's no danger whatsoever then of any kind of escalation of the suffering. The dukkha stays with us. We're holding the energy. We're working with perhaps difficult, very powerful sometimes, painful energies. We're allowing them to manifest. And then we see how, like everything, absolutely everything, they come to cessation. And there's nothing quite so amazing and beautiful as seeing the kilesa, the defilements, the difficulties, the painful mind states, the painful emotions arising and passing away, and not shaking, not troubling, not diminishing our mindfulness, our peacefulness. And in this way, we can really notice how the way that we're paying attention is actually freeing the heart from suffering. We can actually liberate the heart from suffering, can't we, in these ways? And we can become really masterful, really kind of able to maintain a degree of equanimity, a degree of well-being, whatever is happening around us. And isn't it interesting how as we work with our karmic kind of predicament, that is the residue of greed, hatred, and delusion here, right here, as we start to experience negative, unwholesome states of mind, such as anger, or greed, or conceit, fear, anxiety, depression, and so forth. As we get to know these states, whatever they are for you, whatever ways in which you suffer, and we start to see how these states arise and pass, come and go, have their moments and have their cessation, then we can really start to appreciate there is a movement out of suffering that's happening here. There's a movement away from anger. There's a lessening of the reactivity over time. And it's really lovely to pay attention to this, to notice cessation, to notice progress on the path, to notice like the things that, really used to upset me, really used to annoy me, as I keep practicing and working with anger in all these different ways, paying attention skillfully. I'm just a lot less easy to upset these days. It's a lot of things that used to cause me distress, agitation. It's just not happening now. And I can look around and actually see a lot more of what's going on around me. It's interesting, isn't it, when we're upset, when we're reacting to situations, we often get something like a tunnel vision, don't we? I was walking the other day out on the street, and 2 cars came by going quite fast, and in the car that was behind, there's a young man who was driving and also leaning right out of the window and shaking his fist and screaming at the top of his voice, insults, hurling insults at the guy in the car in front, who probably couldn't hear him at all, but maybe could see him shaking his fist. And it was really interesting just to observe that scenario. Painful scenario, but just to see how it was with these 2 cars shooting along the road. And the sense I got was, it's just like that. It's like tunnel vision. It's like you can only go in this direction when you're so overwhelmed with negativity. You're so riled up. You're so agitated. Isn't it the case? We become focused on just this one thing, and everything else that's going on around us disappears. It's really difficult to widen the view, to see the bigger picture, to consider the other or the others around us when we're caught up in strong anger, fear, reactivity, desire, addiction, seriously wanting, obsessing about what we want. Nothing else exists for us when we're caught up in these strong emotions. And so we can start to notice how as we right attention, wise attention, and observe the slow but sure diminishing of unwholesome states, then we start to open quite naturally to the bigger picture, and we can begin to experience the very beautiful way of just quite naturally being able to open to the others around us. And so we can get to the point, say, with the irritating person who makes us so angry, whatever they say, we can notice where anger would arise, could arise, did arise in the past, there may come a time when that anger is no longer triggered. I can breathe through this experience. I don't have any strong inclination to speak or act in an angry way. I can handle this. I can then start to see the other person more clearly. It's like, who is this person? Where are they coming from? What's happening for them? What is it over there? And we can start to notice, much more clearly, much more deeply, much more in a much more all-encompassing way, why anger arises. What are the real causes of anger? Looking at the whole process from start to finish, understanding dukkha, in short. As we understand dukkha, we can come out of the suffering, we can cease to react, and we can really attend to what could actually be helpful in this situation. How can I put something into this that is wholesome, that is positive, that is healing, that is helping? And so we can really start to turn things around. And it's really quite remarkable then how creative we can be and how much we can generate wholesome qualities and enable extraordinary transformation to take place. And this is relevant for us, I would say, on a daily basis, even a moment-by-moment basis, that there are so many opportunities when we really are operating, from a place of non-reactivity, from a peaceful heart. There are so many ways that we can, look around and see what can be done, what good can be done, what benefit can be added into this situation. So these are just some thoughts. Thank you. Some reflections on attention and how we pay attention, and how our skillful cultivation of wise attention can really change the world. So, Ewan.
Sadhu, 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 unwholesome.
So thank you for your kind attention, Venerables, here in the room, and all of you there. Thank you so much for joining us. And I'm just going to have a look at the chat and see if there's any questions, comments that I can share with us all. Thank you, and hello, everybody. Good to see you, Ubon from Thailand. Hi, Charles Lee. Hello, everybody. Thank you for your comments all. Charles Lee has a question. I've heard anger and greed often are covering up emotions that I'm oblivious to or unwilling to feel. How can I investigate the bodily sensations of anger and greed? How can investigating the bodily sensations of anger and greed uncover emotions that lie underneath? Thank you, Charles Lee. Yeah, that's a really good question and point, actually, that isn't it the case that when we pay attention to what's actually happening for us when we experience an afflictive emotion like anger or greed, we can really see that it's often the tip of the iceberg. And the more we feel out what's happening, the more we may become aware of other layers of different kinds of emotions, feelings. We can experience things like kind of memories of previous experiences that mirror, that kind of have a similar resonance with what we're experiencing in the moment. A sense of a pattern can emerge, certain things happen and I react in certain ways. And it's like a knee-jerk response. It's like, I've always done this. I seem to do this every time. We can start to investigate more deeply these kinds of patterns of behavior. And, as we pay skillful attention and we observe these layers often, the underlying issues, feelings, mind states, we can learn so much about the karma, the predicament we're in. And we can observe also, of course, that these things soften, they loosen up. These patterns can start to actually unravel. And we can even notice that the very deepest habit patterns that we have are not permanent, are not lasting. They can't last forever. And the application of wise attention, mindfulness, skillful practice enables us to really dissolve, any kind of constellations of habits, any kind of knots, any kind of patterns that have maybe lasted a very long time. Through our wise attention, we can enable even these to find their peace, to come to their place of cessation. I think it's often through investigation of the body, of feeling in the body, that we can do this very deep, very profound work. Thank you, Charlesley. I hope that meets your question. Yeah, thanks everybody. I don't see any more questions at the moment. That's very fine. Any questions in the room? Feel free. See if I can figure out how to get rid of this message. Oh, there's more comments, sorry. Oh, great. Thank you, Charlesley. Okay. So I'd like to give you a verse from the Dhammapada. Here goes. Kodang jahe vipajahe amanang Sangyojanang samamati kameya Tang nama rupasming asajamanang Akinshanang nanupatanti dukkha. So this is the first verse in the chapter in the Dhammapada on anger. And so I've been contemplating this verse today. And basically it's saying, give up anger, let go of mana, which is like conceit, let go of conceit, let go of the sense of me and mine. And then it goes on, overcome, move through, let go of all the fetters. Avoid clinging to name and form, to mind and body. Don't make them mine. And then the last line is saying that suffering in this way of practice, suffering cannot befall such a person. So it's very simple, not so easy to actually fully fulfill immediately, but this is most surely the way of moving forward in our practice. And I'm glad I could bring this in, because one important aspect of this teaching on anger is to avoid conceit, to avoid making it mine. Don't own it. Don't identify with it. And this can be a tall order for us, but it's surely the way to very quickly move through anger. Let go of anger. Don't allow anger, not allow anger to overpower us, to overwhelm us. So this is another parting reflection for you. When we're riled, when we're reacting, when we're afflicted by negative emotions, let's remember, this is not me. This is not mine. This does not define me. This is like a corpse of a dead animal that's been thrown around my neck. It's not mine. It's nothing to do with me. And I'm going to get rid of it just as quickly as I can. In this way, let's remember anatta. And remember that as much as we, identify with our experience, make it mine, just that much we suffer. And so with any of the afflictive emotions, it's very helpful to have that sense of, it's like an intruder that's come in. It's like a robber that's come into the house. It's like, it's a kind of like a stranger who's come in, and we don't need to abuse them. We don't need to eject them. We can welcome them, but knowing that they're here for a while, but they will move on. They'll go on their way. And, so to remember that we don't have to own, we don't have to over-identify with negative mind states. We can take responsibility for them, and we can bear witness to them, and we can fully engage with them in order to understand the suffering that's there. But then we can let them go, and, not make them a cause for any kind of selfing. We can often, if we get upset, get angry, we can often feel a sense of self-blame in relation to what's happened. We can feel judgmental, we can feel critical of ourselves. Oh, I'm still struggling with this. This is just too bad. I'm just not doing very well here. As soon as we start to get into self-recrimination, atta, self, has come up. And this is just a whole heap more suffering on top of the suffering that we're already bearing. So we can remember to not make anything me or mine or myself. And this is another way, another strategy, another technique or way of considering reality that helps us to, move through quickly, relinquish, learn from and let go of all the afflictive emotions. So we have just a few minutes, and we have a question from Kim. Thank you, Kim. Here it is. Any thoughts on first aid when you're in a rage? First aid, yeah, I like that. How to take care, how to take care of ourselves. In a rage, when there's really strong anger, when it's very hot, my sense would be, first aid would be to try and remove myself from the situation, if possible, if it's not going to create any harm or upset. Literally just, I've been in meetings actually in the past when I have become very enraged, and one of the strategies that I would often resort to is just to literally get up and leave the room. And people assume things like you're going to the restroom. So it's an opportunity to go peacefully, quietly, when the danger might be of erupting into some unskillful speech or action. So to remove oneself from the situation is very good first aid for very strong emotion, such as rage, and to go cool down and come back later. And maybe there's some need to address a situation, but not to do it until we've come back to a place of equanimity. Another first aid strategy for rage, for me, would be counting. Just simply do something else that is easy to do, easy to pay attention to, and has nothing to do with the cause of the strong emotion. So to count the breaths, just in any way, just give oneself time to calm down, cool down. Watching the breath can be very good too. And of course, best first aid really, if it's possible, is just to stay very still and very present and be aware of what's happening in the body. And just to give as much attention to that as needed. So I hope that's helpful, Kim. Thank you for your question. And a final question, just before we finish. What does fetters mean? Well, that's a very good question. It's also quite a difficult question to answer in 2 minutes. But basically, a fetter is something which is obstructing us from clear seeing, from real happiness, real peace. So there are certain aspects of ignorance, of not seeing things clearly, that the Buddha defined as fetters. And they are ways in which we see the world which are causing us suffering. For instance, to have a sense of being somebody at all, to have a sense of ownership of this body or these feelings or whatever emotions we're experiencing, even thoughts we're experiencing, to feel that they are us, they define us, they belong to us. This is a fetter for us. To be attached to rites and rituals as a way of freeing the heart is a fetter for us. Doubt is a fetter. The attachment, the longing for pleasant experiences, these are fetters for us. And there are more subtle and refined fetters which really can be very close to our hearts, that are quite difficult to see, but that are causes for suffering, such as restlessness, such as subtle degrees of conceit, such as desire, aversion in all its different forms, longings for this or that in the future. So these are, just very briefly, a kind of number of the fetters that the Buddha described, that need to be seen for what they are, that need to be put aside, broken through, in order for us to experience peace and happiness. So I hope that very short answer is okay. Please look them up. please do some homework and check out what are the actual 10 fetters that the Buddha taught, because it's a very interesting area for practice and consideration. Okay, I might talk about those next time, if I remember. So thank you, everybody, so much for your kind attention and for your practice. And just keep going. And I wish you every blessing on the path. See you again, I hope. Ewan.